So, when I say Norse mythology, what pops into your head? I'm guessing it's probably Thor and his hammer, maybe Odin and his ravens, or the giant world serpent Jörmungandr. But what if I told you the sagas were hiding other monsters, creatures so vast, so bizarre, they've been almost completely forgotten, lurking in the one place that Vikings respected and feared more than anything else, the deep, dark, open sea?
So let's ask that question. What could actually terrify the people who basically mastered the North Sea? We're not talking about just bad weather or other raiding parties. What kind of creature could make a battle-hardened sailor's blood run cold?
Well, the answer isn't a god from Asgard or some frost giant from Jotunheim. It was the ocean itself. This huge, unpredictable force that could give life and snatch it away in an instant. And the legends born from that deep-seated fear, they're some of the wildest stories you've probably never heard.
Now, to find these particular legends, we can't just flip open the usual books on Norse myths. Nope, we have to dig a little deeper into this really unique historical text that's like part royal instruction manual and part medieval encyclopedia of all things strange and wonderful.
It's called the Konungs, which translates to the King's Mirror. And just picture this for a second. It's around 1250 AD. You're a young prince, and this book is basically your how-to guide for, well, everything. How to be a good king, how to act at court, and, get this, what giant monsters you need to look out for when you're sailing. And this wasn't just fantasy. This was treated as essential, practical knowledge for a future ruler.
And right there, tucked away between lessons on trade routes and how the stars work, there's a whole chapter on the marvels of the sea. And this is where that line between what we'd call science and what we'd call mythology just completely vanishes. It's here we get to meet our two incredible creatures.
So, let's meet them. Their names are Lyngbakr and Hafgufa. And honestly, they perfectly represent the two biggest fears of being out on the open water: absolute deception and just raw, overwhelming power.
So here's the breakdown. You've got Lyngbakr, whose name means heathback. It's the ultimate predator of trickery, a living, breathing island that lures you in. And then you have Hafgufa, the sea mist, which was described as the mother of all sea monsters. Their hunting styles are totally different. One is this clever, almost personal trap, and the other is just a terrifying, passive force of nature. Okay, let's just walk through the Lyngbakr's trap, because it is as brilliant as it is horrifying. Imagine, you've been at sea for weeks, you are exhausted, you're starving, and then you see it, a small green island. It looks like salvation. So, you pull up your ship, you go ashore, you light a fire to finally get a warm meal, and that heat wakes up the beast. The ground you're standing on suddenly lurches and dives into the abyss, pulling your ship and your entire crew down with it. So you see, Lyngbakr wasn't just some monster story to tell around the campfire. It was a parable. It was a crucial lesson for sailors in the North Sea, where fog can hide jagged rocks and killer storms can appear out of nowhere. The lesson? Out here, absolutely nothing is what it seems. You can't even trust the solid ground beneath your feet.
All right, now we have to talk about Hafgufa, because this is where a 13th century legend gets, well, it gets weirdly scientific. It was said to be the biggest monster of all, but it's the way it hunted that is the real jaw-dropper.
Right, so the ancient text says this thing didn't chase its prey. It didn't stalk anything, it just waited. Think about that for a second. From a predator's point of view, how on earth could that possibly work? How does any creature hunt by literally doing nothing? Because here's the unbelievable part. The skuggsjá, written almost 800 years ago, described this super bizarre hunting technique with stunning, almost clinical detail. And the craziest thing is, the answer to how it worked was sitting right there in the text the whole time, just waiting for modern science to finally catch up.
Just look at this side by side. It is absolutely uncanny. The ancient text says the monster yawns its jaw wide, lets out a scent that attracts fish, and then, when its mouth is full, it just snaps it shut. This isn't just a monster story. It is a nearly perfect eyewitness description of the lunge-feeding behavior of modern baleen whales, like humpbacks or blue whales. These Viking sailors with zero scientific framework were seeing this incredible natural event and describing exactly what they saw. To them, it must have looked like the ocean itself was opening its mouth to swallow the sea.
And this incredible story doesn't just end in a dusty old book. Not at all. After being pretty much forgotten for centuries by everyone except a few scholars, this ancient myth recently made a massive, spectacular comeback in one of today's biggest storytelling formats.
I mean, just think about the incredible journey the story has taken. For hundreds of years, it's just a legend written on parchment. Then, in the 20th century, science finally catches up and basically validates the core observation of the myth. And then, bam, in 2022, the legend is completely reborn for millions of people all over the world.
Yeah, in the video game God of War Ragnarök, the Hafgufa isn't some evil beast you have to slay. They reimagined it as this colossal, ancient, almost wise creature, a living ecosystem, the very last of its kind. It's a really beautiful tribute that connects the fear and wonder of a 13th century sailor directly to the awe of a 21st century gamer.
So what does this all really mean? What's the takeaway? Well, Hafgufa and Lyngbakr were never just simple monster stories. They were so much more than that. They were how a culture gave a face to things they couldn't explain. They were mythological answers for very real events, like a strange whale behavior, or maybe even a volcanic island appearing and disappearing. They were the Norse way of trying to map the biggest unknown in their world, the ocean. These monsters were as real to them as the terror of a sudden storm, and as real as the absolute awe of seeing a whale breach the surface for the very first time.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If a near-perfect description of whale filter feeding can hide in plain sight in a medieval text for 800 years, what other incredible truths might be disguised as myths, just sitting there, waiting for us to finally look at them in a new light?